All right, welcome to another episode of the 28 to 3 podcast. I'm Max. I'm here with Nick. Corey's still MIA. We do expect him back in the next few days. So for all you Corey fans out there, just hang tight for a few more days. He'll be back soon. But today's episode, we're going to go ahead and talk about the Falcons game on Sunday. Nick, give me some thoughts, man. What are you feeling?
I feel pretty good about it. The defense against poor offenses has done pretty well. Not the same for good offenses we played. They've had no problem dicing us up. We've been, defending the run pretty well other than maybe the Rams game. But in all honesty, I thought the Rams would run it way better than they did, even though I think he ended up with 100 yards. But it wasn't explosive or, it was more the amount of carries that got them where they were. Held them to about 4 a carry, I believe, if I remember, Kyron Williams. They did a great job against the Bucs and then the poor teams before it. So, I still think the formula is the same as when we talked about it a few weeks ago or a month ago in the Atlanta game. Since the Atlanta game, did we lose the Lions right after? I think we've won 4 of 6 since then. But the formula is the same. It's going to be about Algier, Bijan, and even Cordero Patterson running the ball at us a ton. We know Heineke. You put him in tight spots, he's going to throw you a couple, but he's also capable of...
Well, he might not play. I know he's injured, and they're talking about we might see Ritter.
Ritter again?
Yeah, he's going to be preparing Ritter just in case. I know that.
What's his injury? I didn't even see that he was injured.
I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I just know he got injured at some point.
Well, either way, better for us. Ritter, maybe. He runs it a little. Heineke doesn't. We have trouble with the running guys. But either way, Ritter or Heineke is going to throw you a couple balls that you need to pick.
Yeah, they both suck, if we're being honest.
Right, as passers, they're not very good. So this is all about stopping the run again. If you stop the run, it looks like Heineke, everything he can to put ankle injury. Okay, so the last I saw, he was gonna be the starter, but maybe that was updated what Max saw, that he may be leaning to out. But either way, I don't think it matters much from the quarterback position. There's not someone we fear there in either scenario. It's about stopping Bijan from the big game. He had a big 2-touchdown game against us last time. We lost the game. I would expect the same. If we allow him to go for 100 total yards and 2 touchdowns, we're going to lose the game. With that said, I honestly believe we're the better team. We're at home. We hate them just like they hate us, and we're not going to be, too keen on getting swept by them. So I think we win, and I think we'll be able to throw the ball on them again. I think it could look similar to what we did with Tampa, throwing the ball. These short tight end, if Juwan's playing like that, can hurt Atlanta for sure. Caden Ellis isn't going to be able to guard him, and that's who they're probably going to have, chase him around the field for the most part. And then, I would expect a bounce back from Olave this week too, and, he shouldn't have any trouble with that secondary either. So I think this is probably a little bit leaning to a pass-oriented approach on offense, especially with AK maybe being out, where, we hope that's not the case. But if he is, it's definitely going to be a pass-heavy approach. And I think that feeds into their weakness. They're a really good defense. They're actually much better than last year. I think we talked about it before after we lost to them. They signed a whole bunch of people, drafted. They went all in on improving the defense, and they are much better. But, I feel like their weakness is their pass defense. So if we can protect Carr like we did last week, I think he can succeed. I do expect it not to be high scoring. I expect it to be a close game. It always is. But I like where we're at for the game. And, I thought we would split with them before the season. I'm just going to stick with that.
Let me ask you this. Are you worried at all about Jesse Bates? Maybe doing the wrong thing again and somehow picking off Carr?
I know that was a funny quote and all that, but I understand what he's saying. That's why Jesse Bates is Jesse Bates. That's why I couldn't believe they let him go. He didn't make the wrong play. He did what Jesse Bates does. That's what the best ones do. They bait you into that and they take it.
Exactly.
So it was a very poor way of him phrasing it. I think I understand what he was trying to say. Like, that safety's responsibility wasn't there. It wasn't, but that's what the great ones do. They cover, they see the things better than most of the league. He is one of the best in the league. He's an awesome player. And the Carr quote was just a really dumb way of phrasing what I think he was trying to say. It was a great play by Bates. It was.
Yeah, and that was more towards the midpoint of the season, and I think that's when, everyone really got on Carr's ass after that. It was a streak of a few games in a row where he just seemed to say the wrong thing over and over again. It's like, just say, hey, I made a bad throw.
Yeah.
A great player made a great play and be done with it.
Like you said, after that, in the review pod after that game, you said it. It was a poor throw anyway. It was a great play, yes, but it was still a poor throw. It wasn't going to be complete. It was a terrible throw by Carr. No doubt about it. So just own that it was a bad throw.
Exactly.
And so him saying it that way. But at the end of the day, that was an incredible play by Bates because that was not his responsibility to play. He read the play so quickly and got over and got it, but still it was a bad throw. So both can be possible.
Exactly. I just think it's more the accountability aspect of it. Just say, hey, I fucked up. It was a great play and be done with it. Just the fact that he seemed to be trying to pass the buck off. And
I think once he saw that film, he probably felt like an idiot. I would
hope so.
I think he thought it was a better throw than it was because the way he talked was that Bates prevented it, and that wasn't the case. And when he saw how far behind he threw that and that it potentially could have been picked by a different player, he probably felt like an idiot.
Yeah.
Once he saw the film, once he saw the actual replay.
Hopefully. Well, my thoughts on the game, I think offensively, it's going to be tough. If AK doesn't play, that's going to be really, really tough because that makes you pretty one-dimensional unless Jamal Williams just, suddenly turns into –
maybe Kendra.
Man, I would love to see Kendre Miller this week. I really, I was excited about him coming into the season. I think he's probably the only running back on the roster who has any real juice. And, that's something that we're desperately missing in our offense. There's just nobody in our backfield who's a threat to break a long run. You and I had a discussion via text message a few weeks ago about AK and his career long runs, and it's really not that many, and it's even now he just doesn't have the speed anymore. He's bulked up more. He's more of a powerful.
He's still got that shake.
He's got the shake, but
he definitely does not have that that big play explosion once he gets to the second level. And to the edge. I think it's more evident at the edge when we're trying to run outside with him. And there's no reason we need to run outside with him. We can play to what he still does very well. And between the tackles this year, he's been quite good. I think it's when we're trying to get him in going laterally that he doesn't quite have the same juice to get the corner. It's one step away. But still a great player. And I think all that should mean is less lateral type of screens, more up in the wheel routes and up the middle of the field. Get him to the second level so he can beat that linebacker and turn these into 20 and 30-yard plays. We just don't see a lot of it the last few years with him for the explosive plays.
And look, if it's going to be a lateral play, it better be a pass. Like, a nice little swing pass where you can kind of get him going with some momentum first and then throw it to him and let him see what he can do. But we desperately – man, if Kendre, and I have my doubts whether we'll see him this week or not, but he's the number one guy for me I want to see in the preseason next year and in training camp because I want to see if we have anything with him because we desperately need somebody in the running back room who can break a long run. Right now, to me, Taysom's probably the biggest threat to bust a long run because he's got that that acceleration. But I don't know, man. The running back room's looking rough. We talked about it before. There's a very realistic scenario where this is 2024 is Kamara's last season with the Saints, just from the way his cap number is going to balloon up for the 2025 season. And you just simply can't keep a 29, 30-year-old running back under that contract if he's not, producing 20 touchdowns a year. So
he's a top 5 paid running back.
And look, this is realistically going to be his last season coming up, the 2024 season. It doesn't really make any sense to move on from him this year. I don't think there's any real draft pick compensation that we would get for him that would make it really worth it.
Right, because of the money.
Yeah, because of the money. You're going to take the hit no matter what. So, Saints fans, go ahead and enjoy the next 16, 17, 18 games, whatever it ends up being with AK. because this is probably the end of it's going to be the last ride for probably the best running back in our team's history.
What's the likelihood of him restructuring and taking less money over a couple years rather than you think there's – I mean, he's got us by the balls, obviously, if he wants to, but I'm sure he's going to be approached this offseason.
I mean, this year I guess you could say he has us by the balls because he's, we're stuck between a rock and a hard place, but after that he really doesn't because he's going to get cut.
You mean after 24?
Right, but at 24, he's got us by the balls.
Right.
But you just got to look at, does he want to stay? Does he want to go to a new team? If he really likes it here, which all indications are that he does.
Right. Does he take like a 3-year deal for whatever, $6.5 million a year, give him 15 guaranteed, 18 guaranteed, whatever? What's there's no way they're not approaching him.
Oh, they're absolutely going to. And look, I think the first person that's going to get approached in the offseason about renegotiating the contract is going to be Carr. Because what they're going to do is they're going to go ahead and just, they're going to renegotiate it, which basically they're going to guarantee him more money and inflate his long-term cap figure, while in the short term giving us more room to operate with the salary cap.
Right,
like
which
Carr's,
sucks.
That's a foregone conclusion. That's going to happen.
But that sucks because
it's
going to restrict us from the freedom we have with that contract, which I think was done very well. But for everybody out there who think the cap doesn't matter, this is the type of thing where the cap matters because we have to get under the cap. We're going to have to maneuver these big contracts. And now we're going to sign up for longer term, probably not more money. It'll be more guaranteed money.
It's just going to move it around.
It's going to commit us to another year of Carr, though, probably.
Yeah.
After that. So
it's going to make it basically the price that the Broncos are going to have to pay over 2 years for doing what they're doing to Russ. It's going to be the same situation for us if we decide to move on from him after the 2024 season.
Right. Well, right now that's not the case. That's
right,
what it's going to turn
exactly.
into, which is why the cap does matter for all the Loomis lovers that always say he could. This is where it matters because, and I'm not a Carr hater. I'm just saying I don't want to commit to him to his third year as a Saint right now. I would rather see what happens next year, see what the roster build's going to look like to decide if you want to keep a 34-year-old or reboot and go with someone younger and try and start building your next winning team.
Yeah, and the argument becomes, do you renegotiate the contracts of 4 or 5 guys like an AK, like a Michael Thomas, like an Andrews Pete, people who have dead money that's coming up and are possibly free agents. Like Andrews Pete comes to mind first and foremost. But they can go ahead and renegotiate it, maybe add another year or two, keep him for another year, and then spread that money out. So they could do it with those players.
Yeah.
Or do it with just Carr.
And we're going to get in depth with this on the next episode, on a special episode for this week. We'll kind of go over that of what the trajectory looks like. Mac's been looking at the cap a lot and how that translates going forward. So we're gonna do a little breakdown of that and some draft stuff too for towards the end of the this week. We'll release it this week and we'll cover it in depth. But there's a lot of options and most of them are bad.
Yeah.
That's where we're at. So what do you think, though, outside of, you said offense is going to be difficult, but how do you feel with our defense this week? We saw a terrible performance in LA, then a great performance in Tampa. What do you think? I would say Atlanta is the worst of the 3 offenses in those 3 weeks. So, how do you think that plays out?
I'm a lot more encouraged after watching him this week because we remember week 3 when Baker, he was rushing and scrambling and getting yards. The defense just looked lost. This past week, though, the Saints defense was not having any of it. They just shut down the running game. It was like the Bucs were running into a brick wall over and over and over again. I think they keep that momentum going. With the Falcons, the biggest thing you've got to worry about with them is the running game. There's basically a 3-headed monster between Bijan, Algier, and Cordero Patterson. And then if Ritter ends up playing, you got to worry about him too because he's got some speed. I honestly would prefer to see Heineke at this point. I just don't know if I trust our defense with the scrambling quarterback. And I'm not saying he fits this scrambling quarterback mold, but he has the capacity to pop off a long run if he has an opening. And we saw it in the last game where he had a backbreaking run later in the game. So we need to stop the running game. We saw it in the last game. They pounded us in the fourth quarter. It was after the Taysom Hill fumble when we were about to go in and score, and it looked like we were going to take control of the game at that point. They bounced back and fucking gashed us for basically 10 straight minutes. You know, the defense looked helpless. I honestly thought at that point that we might have actually, that was them quitting because they looked like they quit on that last drive. But the defense has obviously come together the last few weeks. Honestly, I think we win this game. You know, I said it a few weeks ago. I feel like we're going to make the playoffs somehow. I'm not sure if it's winning the division. The Panthers look like a peewee football team at this point. You know, I can't imagine the Bucs are going to go lay an egg again against them, but it is a division game. Strange shit happens in division games. The other scenario to me is almost more plausible. You know, we need the Packers and the Seahawks to lose, and they both have games that are tough. Mm-hmm. So that's
I mean, at Arizona, who's
Arizona just went to Philly
and beat Philly. They're at home. You know, not across country or anything, but you're jumping a time zone. Seattle has not played great offensively. You know, that's going to be a real interesting game. I think that's a tight game. I don't know. I didn't look at the lines. I would bet that's close to a pick'em game.
Yeah.
Then the Bears have maybe been playing the best in that division outside of the Lions. I mean, they've turned it around. They're up to 7 wins out of nowhere. We saw them earlier in the year when Fields was hurt. You know, maybe we caught a break catching them then. Obviously we did. But they've rebounded pretty well the last, 5-6 weeks and are playing really, really well. That's a hard game for the Packers. And it's a rivalry. So
plus, you don't know how the weather's going to be. Look, it was a snowstorm when last week against the Falcons, the Bears. You know, and look, Justin Fields, man, he's playing for his job. I don't think he's going to be on the Bears next year, but
he's playing for a
he's
contract.
Playing his ass off for a contract. So from someone's going to obviously he's going to have a chance to start somewhere. We don't know if it's going to be in Chicago or not. I would think they're going to want to reset and go with Caleb Williams or Drake May or hell even Jaden Daniels. But Fields is playing his ass off. That's not a gimme.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of his, but he has played much better. I still think he's kind of an average passer of the ball, but his athleticism is off the charts. And, if it's a bad weather game, good luck trying to tackle that guy in bad weather. He's going to run it right at him. And if it is a snow game or something, I would lean towards Chicago winning that game.
Either way, it's going to be a competitive game. You know, look, the Pack, Jordan Love's had a good season. You know, he had a little rough stretch in the middle of the season, but he's bounced back and he looks like a keeper at this point. You know, I don't know. I'm not going to say he's going to get to the levels of Aaron Rodgers or Brett Favre, but he's throwing 30 touchdowns this year, which is pretty damn good for a first-year starter.
He's had some awful games and then had some just off the charts games. So I mean, he went through a run of 14 straight touchdowns without an interception at some point during the year, and then had like you said, a big drought. I doubt they fear that pass game. I think the Pack they're a run-first team. They are. So that's where Chicago will have to focus. But I agree with you. Division game, tight game.
Anything can happen in those games.
And then Arizona-Seattle's division game. And, I wouldn't want to have to win that game if I was Seattle to get in.
Yeah, Arizona, the coach, he came from Philadelphia. Really good coach. He's got those guys motivated, man. They've been a tough out this whole year. And now they have Kyler Murray back, and he's doing his, 3-year-old toddler who just grabbed a toy and is running away from you sort of routine where he just is fucking running all over the place. So that's a tough game, man. It's going to be fun because I think they're both at 3 o'clock. So, I'll be at the game this week, but after that I'll be racing home to get in front of the TV and kind of see what's going on with that, especially if we have a chance, to make the playoffs at that point by winning. So, but I guess you want to talk about predictions?
Yeah, we may as well.
Well, I got Corey's predictions. Corey is he's in Greece right now. He's living the good life.
Let's start with that.
Yeah, we'll start off with him. He sent me the longest text message I've ever seen. So let's see what he says. I'm going to go ahead and read this so nothing gets lost in translation. So he says, all right, fittingly at the last game of the year, He has no fucking clue what to expect out of this team. Logically, I'd like to think that we take the momentum from a strong performance with everything on the line against a Falcons team that seems to have quit, and we drag them and win comfortably. But even if it's not a blowout, say 24-14, but in its Saints-Falcons line of thought, it won't be the above. Whether it's A, us missing opportunities, reverting back to our defense, letting them run the ball all over us, / allow inopportune chunk plays, or B, us playing decent, but just simply letting them hang around, I think it's still going to be a close game. The scenario, he says, he forgets if it was me or Jono who said it, of us losing most of the game and the fire DA chance growing stronger and stronger in the dome, plus maybe us thinking we'll finally get rid of him, maybe, will come to full fruition, only to see us heroically pull ahead at the end to win 21-20, as my score predicts. Whether that means the Bucs lose to Carolina or we get both teams, we need to lose to get the wild card. Really can't say, but it's going to be another chapter of a frustrating win regardless. Either way, we get into the playoffs realizing it's definitely another year of DA, or win and still miss the playoffs, knowing that DA is likely the head coach again. All right, that was a lot of rambling. I know it's late at night over there, and he's had a couple of glasses of wine.
21-20 Saints.
21-20 Saints.
Did he give you an MVP?
He did. Let me scroll through this laundry list of text. He says offensive MVP, Chris Olave, 112 receiving yards, 1 touchdown.
Okay.
Defensive MVP, Paulson Adebo, 3 pass breakups, 1 tackle for loss.
Okay. The one thing I'll go next, and you can finish it out.
Okay.
Obviously, the one thing I think we both dispute there is DA is already the coach next year.
Yeah.
So
and we'll excuse Corey. He's been in Europe and he hasn't really been keeping up with the latest.
I think he's just holding
reports.
out hope, but that hope is dead in my opinion.
Yeah,
I don't see. Man, we could lose this game by 20, and I don't think they're firing him at this point.
Agree.
I think he's here next year. So, but
so we might as well make the best of it.
Right. So these are always close games. So
yeah.
That doesn't necessarily mean we made a mistake or anything. This is always a difficult game. Even when we were dominating them, we had I remember Drew throwing 5 picks in Atlanta when we were a far better team. There were just these. It just is what it is. It's a rivalry. It's gonna be a tight game. It's gonna go to the fourth quarter almost certainly, and I think we pull it out as well. I'm gonna call it 23-20. I'm going to say it's Carr again.
You took my pick. I was going to say the same thing.
I like Olave bouncing back because, as much as I've been on him this year about some of his failed games, he usually bounces back with something, pretty good. He's got 1,000 yards this year, 20 yards last week. I expect more targets and more catches from him this week. But I do think it's, again, Jawan who could kill this team.
I was going to say the same thing, yeah.
So I'm going to say they spread it between those two mainly. And Carr goes about 240 yards, 2 touchdowns. Groupie kicks 3 field goals. Defensively, I'm going to go a little bit off the map, and I'm going to say it's Zach Bond.
I like that.
They finally... We talked about this a month ago, and then we didn't do it in the Rams game. Makes no sense. And then he comes back this week, and every time he was on the edge, he was pressuring Baker. Got him once, I think.
Yeah, and you know what? We got to jab Corey a little bit on this one because you and I, we had the infamous Caden Ellis discussion in one of our early episodes, and then you and I were both talking about how Zach Bond, he potentially could do the same damn thing. And Corey was talking about how Bond basically sucks. Caden Ellis is awesome. And now we're seeing when they play to his strengths that Zach Bond is an effective pass rusher and honestly is a must re-sign at this point.
That spin move where he got upfield, spun inside, and just hit Baker. He's a true pass rusher. Mm-hmm. You can see it. He has the most pass rushing skills of anyone, including Cam. Cam is a far superior player over his career, but was never that true, out and out pass rusher guy. He was just,
Well, Bond's 230 pounds soaking wet, so he's explosive, and
Right.
obviously you can't line him up at defensive end exclusively, but as a designated pass rusher.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah,
This is a third. He probably shouldn't be on the field other than third down, in my opinion.
Agree.
He's a specialist. He's not going to be a Pro Bowl player, nothing like that. But rushing the passer, he's getting back there regularly. Anytime they put his hand in the ground, he's getting back there.
Dude, I'm telling you, with 17 games, like if they would use him the way we used him in the last few games,
He should be an 8 to 10 sack.
that's an 8 to 10 sack player, man. And he doesn't. To your point, he doesn't need to play all 3 downs. Just bring him in as a third down pass rushing specialist and just turn him loose.
Yep. So I'm going to say he gets a sack, and and it's just disruptive, like 3 pressures. I think he's just going to be disrupted this week and make the quarterback get rid of the ball on some of those third downs. I think they're going to give him the snaps, and he gets to him once, and he causes a couple other disruptive plays back there that, makes good things happen. Either just shutting them down on third down, causing an interception, a fumble, something. But I'm going to go with him off the radar a little bit because he's finally getting some playing time where I think he should have been the last 3 years.
Yeah. All right. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm deviating from what I've been doing for the past 7 weeks or so, since it's obvious at this point that the whole fire DA thing is pretty much dead for a few months. The Saints are going to win this game. I'm going to say 17-14. I'm going to go ahead and say Cam Jordan, just with his hatred of the Falcons that he shares with all of us, he is going to there's going to be a fire lit under his ass. He is going to show us vintage Cam and get 2 sacks on Sunday. I just feel like he's due. He really hasn't had much production at all in the sack department this year, but I feel like he's going to pull it out. The sun is setting on a great career. I think this is one of the bigger games, probably one of the biggest games he's got left in his career. And I think he's going to finally come through, show out, have 2 sacks. I'm tempted, if Kendre Miller plays and AK doesn't, I'm tempted to go with the surprise Kendre Miller MVP pick for offense. Obviously, we won't know anything till later in the week. So as of right now, I'm going to go ahead and say Carr is going to be the MVP. I think, like Nick said, Carr and Juwan Johnson are both, I think, going to do real well again. Juwan seemed to be finally finding his place, which it's kind of strange that it took this long for it to happen. But I feel like Juwan's going to have 7 or 8 catches. He'll be in that 80 to 85 yard range. I think Carr goes, 250 and 3 touchdowns. Not 3 touchdowns. It'll be 2 touchdowns. 2 touchdowns. So I think it's a 1A, 1B situation on offensive MVP. I know I went on a little tangent there talking about Kendre, but if Kendre does play, I could see a world where he gets turned loose and we're all like, oh, this is what we have in him. But for now, we'll say Carr / Juwan.
And what was the score?
17-14.
Okay.
Groupie will hit a field goal. I think the whole our trope of messing with Groupie and saying like, oh, hey, he's going to nail a 50-yarder, but then he's going to miss a 35-yarder in crunch time. I'm shelving that for right now. He's been pretty good the last few weeks. I think he'll, his field goal will be 45 yards, something in that range. He'll nail it.
It'd be nice to see him hit a game winner because I don't think he has one.
It would be. Like you said, though, I think as Saints-Falcons games always are, it's going to be a close one. It's going to come down to the last few minutes. We'll all be scoreboard watching, seeing what's going on with Carolina and Tampa. I think it's going to be a fun Sunday, I think, one way or the other. There's a chance, there's excitement. It's essentially a playoff game. So I think it's all you can hope for this time of the year to be involved in the postseason. So we have a chance at it. So let's see if they can close. But do you have any other thoughts on this before we sign off?
Just beat the Falcons. I don't care. Just beat them. Even
exactly.
If it's 2-0.
Just beat the Falcons. DA's here for another year. Let's make the best of it. Let's beat the Falcons. Let's go to the playoffs. Maybe we can steal one. It looks like we would play the Eagles if we could somehow win a division. That looks like it would be the first round matchup. The Eagles are playing like trash right now, and they're very beatable.
Would it be them?
That's what it was the other day. It looked like if we win because the Cowboys, all they have to do is win, they win their division. So the Eagles are.
Yeah, you're right. Okay.
So
Let's see. What's the other scenario? Cowboys? I'd much rather play the Eagles than the Cowboys.
yeah, I don't want to see any part of the Cowboys.
I guess the only other, no one else can catch. I get because the Rams can't catch them, right? And they're the 6 right now. They're pretty much locked in to the 6 spot. Well, they're locked in. I don't think they're locked into the 6 spot. I think they're locked in. So is there any scenario? Detroit's locked up the division, right?
Yeah.
Dallas so it's going to be the loser of the division for Dallas and Eagles for sure if we were to get in, unless we get in a wild card spot, and then we would have to go to the winner of that. So it's going to be one of those 2 teams regardless. So it's going to be Eagles or Cowboys regardless.
Well, let's just say this. Let's just win this game, and then we can get to the ramifications of it. But with that, I don't have anything else. Anything for you, Dad?
Nope, that's a wrap.
All right. Well, let's leave it with fuck the Falcons.
What a comeback!